I have made models most of my life. Model aircraft at one time, they have a habit of nosediving into the ground, and you take the pieces home in a box. This is the time when transmitters are gripped very tightly and the adrenaline's flowing, and we eventually get the Janet M successfully onto the Traveller, and then the release mechanisms on the crane are put into action and everything is lifted clear. When the Mersey Mammoth has dropped the jib and everything's in place, the signal's given for the pusher tug to proceed off to sea, and then the Mammoth, escorted by the Huskisson, returns to port.
And that possibly cost me all of about £5 to build, because it's built out of an old staircase and a bits of ply, and it's weathered back as that period, which they used to live on board with the chickens and the crew, and they used to discharge. A little bit special, and a lot of the public, seem to enjoy that. Lifeboat station, such as the rescue mission boards, they've been photographed. I went down, photographed the boards, and I reduced them on a friend of mine reduced them on a rank Xerox machine, and I stuck them onto the boards at the right size. Take that for example, the chains. I had to make the chains, which I can't buy. It's individually planked inside. I think there's the correct amount of rafters in the roof as well. This particular model was... I get immense enjoyment out of making model boats, just to keep the old fingers nimble and the brain agile, and to make one material look like another. It's an illusion, really.
sailing boat came in, they switched very quickly over to 1 meters only, and that is what we sail today. The scale members, on the other hand, they beaver away in their workshops and they make their boats and they bring them out for occasions like this. And on very fine days when the water's calm, we may see 1 or 2 people down on the water actually sailing them. I have made models most of my life. Model aircraft at one time, they have a habit of nosediving into the ground and you take the pieces home in a box. When I gave up full-size sailing, it appealed to me that you could have sailing yachts that were radio controlled and you could sail them without all the palaver of having a full-size boat. This became very attractive and I get just as much excitement out of racing model yachts as I did out of racing full-size yachts. Ever since I have been involved with radio control, we've always had a proportional system of control enabling us to alter the trim of the sails and to steer. At one time, I think this wasn't possible, and they used to have what they called vane steering on boats, but you had no direct control over them, and you had to guide them and make sure you had someone to pick them up. Enjoy the racing in the marina here. This is a design by a model yacht supplier called Tony Abel, who is based at Salisbury in Wiltshire, and I constructed it from the Lines plan, which 3mm plywood deck. The sails are made of monofilament film on aluminium mast, but the actual total finishing time for the boat.
Because I was on crutches following an accident. And so we were hobbling around the edge of the lake and there was a model boat regatta taking place. And I watched it and became very interested. So I made some inquiries then when I got home and found out about the Cwmbran Club. The first model boat that I made was a kit for a Lesro Sportsman, which I bought in a local model shop. I think at the time was about £12. I've still got that original boat up in the attic, and imagine, it was a really good one. This hobby can get quite expensive, especially if you buy kits. But I say I've gone the cheaper cheaper way. I did buy a hull and a plan for a tug, which I've got, a Sun 21 tug, and that's a really cracking boat. And that was a fairly easy way to build. We are looking forward to the future. I believe we're going to hold a celebration dinner later on this year, and we are doing our normal amount of regattas, but we're going to Gloucester, I think, after this one. That's the next one. We were a flying club originally, and boating came in at a later date when we lost our flying. Scratch-built, own design lifeboat, which started form as a gunboat built on a free plan from model boats. I built the hull, and then I didn't like the gunboat's lifeboat styling, and I more or less designed it similar to a Rother class lifeboat, and all the fittings are the same from a Rother class lifeboat. I made it my own design, and there was a 6-volt electric motor in there running on NiCad batteries with 2-channel radio.
The future of modelling at the moment seems a little bit difficult. Most of the people that you'll see around here are in their late 40s, early 50s as an average age. We're trying to encourage youngsters to come into the hobby, and if we don't get them in, we're going to find that the hobby is going to slowly die out. Why I do commentary work myself on these shows is to try and encourage children. Here we have a little pool where children can come along, have a go, sail a boat, and thoroughly enjoy themselves and see just how easy it is. And if people want to start, it can be done for as little as £50, and that includes your radio control, your boat, your motor, and everything you need. The attraction of model making, I think we're all frustrated sailors. We love sailing. We can't afford to sail the full-size boats, so this is the next best thing. We can enjoy ourselves. It doesn't cost us a lot of money. We don't have to have big transport to pull boats around. We can put them into the boot of our car, we can carry them, and we can sail them virtually anywhere, providing we've got a reasonable little stretch of water. There are various ways of building boats. You can buy a kit and build it from a kit. If you're first starting, this is the ideal way of doing it, because you've got all the bits and pieces. You buy a plan. Most of the big model boat books will sell you plans. Quite often they'll give you free plans in the book. Okay, you're still enjoying the hobby. You're building something, you're keeping yourself occupied, and it will last you for anything up to 30, 40 years. I personally have got a yacht that I built 30 years ago, and I retired it about 6 weeks ago. Here we have a very nice model of a pusher tug. This tug is controlled by its propellers rather than rudders. If you want a pirouette as it is doing now, what you do, you reverse the inner propeller and keep the outer propeller going forward. This enables it to pivot round in its own length. As you can see, it's very, very manoeuvrable, both forward and in reverse. Now, this particular boat belongs to one of my own club members and is built by a university lecturer, as he happens to be, very keen on modelling. It's built from a free plan in one of the model magazines that we get in. Here we have another aspect of modelling, model submarines. All these submarines that you'll see are built by members of the Submariners Association, which are a group of keen modellers that have got together. They model submarines, so they form their own association. I think this one is a model of a German U-boat. I've got to admit, I'm not a brilliant man. I'm not au fait with all the submarines, but I think this is a German U-boat. Now, these boats react exactly the same as a normal submarine. They will dive down to periscope depth and to conning tower depth, whichever you want. Conning tower depth means the big conning tower on the top. Periscope is the little piece that you can see sticking out right at the very top with the black tip. Here we are, we're going down now, and the great advantage in a pond like this, you can still see the submarine when it is submerged, which it now is just at periscope depth. You can just see the little plane. It's only been on the water for a couple of times and they're still trimming it out. Very difficult to trim out a submarine to make it react correctly in diving and coming to the surface. This is done by compressors that are built into the submarine, which actually suck the water in and pump it out again, so that when it dives, it sucks the water in. When it surfaces, it pumps the water back out, and hence the air comes in and lifts the boat back to the surface. Right, as you can see, this submarine is working well, it's doing its forward, it's reverse. It's now going to go along, it's still reversing at the moment. Once it starts to go forward, it will do a submerge trial. Now, if you're worried, when these submarines submerge, if you can't see them, don't worry too much, because most of them nowadays have got a safety device fitted into them and built into the receiver, so that if it loses signal for more than 15 seconds, it will automatically come up to the surface. Now, as you can see, this one is diving down. We've got no worries about losing them, because if they don't come to the surface, we can always paddle in and pick them out. This particular model represents the other side of the story. This is the motor torpedo boat. This is the boat that chases the submarines. Now, this particular model is the latest edition. Instead of having torpedoes as they had in the last World War, they've got the missile launchers. And if you look, you can see as she's turning into camera now, you can see the 6 missile launchers, 3 on either side of the boat. We can't demonstrate the launching of the missiles because they fire fairly horizontally, and as we're in a restricted area, we can't do it. Now, these boats are basically built on exactly the same hull as they were during the last war, the Second World War, on the Vosper Thornycroft hull, which is a very versatile hull. It's a planing hull, and the boat actually comes up onto the plane where the bow virtually comes out of the water. We haven't got enough room here in this pool to do this, but the actual boat will travel at somewhere in the region of 30 knots, and I wish our model boats could go that fast. And there's a lot of really good detail on this boat, and if you look carefully now, you will see that even the rear gun is elevating and rotating. Now we're coming into the bigger stuff. This is a Hunt-class destroyer, which was built in the late 1940s, and it's a model of the boat as it was originally built. This boat is radio controlled, obviously, like all the others, but the only difference being when it's completed, it will have something like 28 channels to operate it. These will be firing depth charges, moving guns, elevating barrels, rotating guns, etc., etc. This is the model of L90, which is Ledbury, and it's taken the owner something like 2 to 2.5 years to get to this stage. It's in its Arctic colours, and you can see the foredeck gun just elevated. Now, I must say, today I think we are absolutely blessed. We've got brilliant sunshine, absolutely gorgeous, Thousands of people have turned up to our show here, this being the second one. I'd like to take this opportunity of thanking Stena Line for their sponsorship of our second show, and look forward to seeing them and hoping we'll be able to be here again next year. Just missing the water, there's the other one on both sides of the boat. This is all done by separate channels on the radio control system. And it just goes to show how much can be done if you spend the time and energy and thought to put into modifying and doing things like this. Boats and models come in all shapes and sizes. This is a very, very nice model of a minesweeper of the Second World War, and the actual boats were built of plywood and timber so that they wouldn't set off the magnetic mines that the Germans were laying during that period. Now, modelling is great fun, it's very entertaining. You can put as much detail or as little detail onto a boat as you want. You'll see some of the boats haven't got a lot of detail on. Now here we've got a very nice little model coming out with quite a fair amount of detail, a model of a fairly heavy tug, heavy duty tug, the sort of thing that would go out to assist oil rigs and things of that description, and the bigger boats, and also to supply materials to other boats. These models can be built from kits or from scratch building, i.e. by just working from the plan. And again, a lot of detail on this boat, the crane on the stern, the hawser points for pulling the other boats along, the big bumpers on the front, the detail on the decking. Here we have another variation on power. This time we're using steam. Previously everything has been electric. Now we're coming on to steam. This boat is driven by a very nice little 2-cylinder steam engine manufactured by the owner who's actually sailing it. This boat sails at approximately 25 pounds per square inch to 50 pounds per square inch, and is forward and reverse exactly the same as an electric boat, but instead of being electric, driven by steam. And there, just to prove it, as I say it, he jets out steam from his funnel. Again, a very simple model, just of a typical Thames or launch that would be running around the Thames or on the lakes in the Midlands and the north of England. There's a nice little model, a little fun model that you can play around with. Heaps of fun with this. Not a difficult one to build. Again, this is steam driven. You can see the steam coming out of the funnel. Plenty of fun with this. Once you've got it steamed up, you can carry on sailing it for quite a long time. Yet another method of propulsion, the paddle steamer. Once again, steam driven. There we go, steam coming out of the chimney, no problems, paddling around very, very nicely. These, you utilise the paddles as well as the rudder to help steer the boat. You can actually reverse one paddle to make the boat spin a little bit quicker. On the models this is rather difficult, but on the full-size boats it's quite easy. This is the second form of power. The original being manpower, this being wind power. This boat being driven purely by the pressure of the wind in the sails, goes exactly the same as the full-size boats. There we are, a little bit of wind, it heels over very, very nicely. It tacks, you'll see in a moment, it will tack round. It's trying to go about now, but like all sailing boats, we are at the mercy of the wind. If the wind doesn't blow, we don't go. Now it looks as if it's picking up a little bit of wind. Yes, it's beginning to. It's heeling over just like the real thing. Heels over very, very nicely. And then as the wind changes slightly, we go on to the other tack. Right there. And we're looking for the wind again, tacking back onto the original and picking up the wind. This is one of the things with sailing boats, even with the models, you've got to look for the wind. Some of the details on these models is absolutely fantastic. Here you can see figures of the crew on the bridge. A little boy looking over the side with the gangplank. And there we are, the Albion, shot of the foredeck with the hawsers, etc. Couple walking in the background, somebody sitting down nicely on the seat. And now we're looking at the engine of the boat. This again is semi-scale to the original engines on the full-size boat. And you can see it looks really nice. Here we have the long view of the engines, and you can see at the moment we've got the paddles going forwards, we stop them, now in reverse. Again, you saw the arm come in, but when it's on the water, this will all be done by radio control. We were talking about detail earlier on. Now we've come inside the museum and we can start looking in earnest at some of the details from various clubs that have come from all over the country to exhibit here. Here we see people generally looking at all the models inside the museum, which is an ideal place to show these models off. These models we're looking at are made to sail. If you come along to the museum, which is open throughout the year, they have a wonderful collection of scale models in glass cases with a lot more detail than we could ever put onto our model boats, purely and simply because ours get damaged when we're sailing them. These in the museum do not, and they are well worth coming along to see. Not only have they got model boats, but they have some very, very nice full-size boats, lifeboats, rowing boats, early type sailing boats, dhows, coracles, a particular boat to North Wales and the Welsh area in general. Do come along, I think you will thoroughly enjoy it. This is the modeller's mecca. This is where they come to spend all their hard-earned cash. In here you can buy any sort of accessory you require for your modelling, right the way through, from a small little pin, nail or anything else, right the way up to a finished boat, including kits, plans, accessories, anything that you require to finish your boat to the standard you want it. The standard is entirely up to you how much detail you put on to your boat.
Wonderful weekend. We've had fantastic weather. We've been very lucky. When the sun shines in Swansea, it's almost better than being in the south of France. But it's been a big festival this weekend. This year we've attracted near on 5,000 people to the event, which is up on last year. We've also had exhibitors and model makers from all over the country, all over the British Isles, from as far afield as Eastbourne and from the north of England and the north of Wales. We've had on display over 1,000 models. We've also attracted traders from all over the country as well, who've been selling starter model kits right up to really, the enthusiasts model boat kit selection. Well, it's been a very popular event. It's very popular with families and with everyone, and next year we hope it will be an annual event here in Swansea. Everybody's very happy, everybody's had a great day.